Welcome to In Her Words. Today we are beginning a special 5-part series, Dispatch from LA, the Women in Entertainment Annual Summit. Our annual summit happens in February and is designed to bring together forward thinkers from all areas of the entertainment industry to explore topics that greatly impact women. Our hope is to share the conversations of these executives and creative powerhouses with a broader audience. In our first episode, actor, director, and producer Brittany Snow is in conversation with Erika Anderson of Slate. They talk about Brittany's career and her vulnerability in her first directing project, which sheds light on mental health. We hope you enjoy.
So before we start, I know you know her, but just a very quick overview on Brittany. She's a real, true multi-hyphenate. She's a prolific actress. You probably know her from her work in Pitch Perfect, Hairspray, X. There are too many to mention. She's currently starring in the Academy Award-nominated short film, Red, White, and Blue. She is also the director of Parachute, and that's what we're going to spend the majority of our time talking about today. And she's also a writer, an author, a philanthropist. There's a lot going on in her world. So we're going to dive into some of that this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll make it all the time. But yeah.
So we're talking a little bit about motivation and our internal thoughts and lives. And when I got to know your bio a little bit, I just kept thinking, are you always on? Like, is your brain always humming? Are you, would you describe yourself as intense? I'm in a good way. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think a lot of people actually would maybe not call me intense, but definitely passionate. And I think that what I've learned about myself through much therapy, psychoanalysis, analysis, is that I have a duality of sorts of being a child actor and needing to feel fulfilled and validated by constantly working and being on and intensely going to the next thing, and then also counteracting that with needing to understand the okay and the silence and just being me and not having to do much, which is innately really hard for me. And learning how to live in that gray of always searching for the next thing that is going to challenge me and push me, but also being okay with just needing to be who I am and not having to achieve anything is something that I strive for, because that balance is really hard.
Do you have, I'm just curious, are there people in your life that know that about you and help you with that?
Oh yeah, my therapist. It's her number one thing. She's like, "Where are you right now?" I'm just like, "Well, I'm thinking about this and that," and yes, my friends, and I think what's really important for me. I was listening to this podcast this morning. Esther Perel had this really great. She was talking about relationships and not this, but she was saying that something that's really important to us is just standing, and as children we learn how to stand, but the whole basis of standing is learning how to balance, is going back and forth on your feet, to go a little bit this way, but then actually knowing and feeling the off balance and going back to the other foot, and how that is how to learn how to walk as a kid. And so I think that's what I'm constantly striving to do, is to make sure that my friends and family and therapists know that I need to be able to stand, and that requires balance.
And that's a great visual. I'm going to carry that with me. Okay, so if you're being thoughtful about the projects that you're doing, I'd love to ask you a little bit about Red, White, and Blue. If you haven't seen this, you need to see this. It was really incredible. I'm curious if you're being discerning, what about this project drew you to it? Why choose to be in this film?
Sure. I mean, I do have a pretty good gauge with myself if I always go from project to project, not necessarily strategically, but out of a gut instinct. And it's always having to do with something that I'm going through in my own life, or that I need to explore within myself. It somehow always works like that. And when I was reading this, I was doing another film at the time. I usually... I have a lot of discernment when it comes to short films specifically, because you have to really pack a lot of punch in a short time. And so when I read this, I didn't know what I was going to expect, but then when I felt the movie down to my toes almost, it went through my whole body. There's a point in the short, there's a twist that happens, and it actually was a visceral experience where I felt ice. And I think it was because I went into it with such preconceived judgment that I put myself in the viewer's shoes a little bit, which I normally don't do. I usually go in it with an acting mindset. And then I said, I have to do this. I don't care what kind of medium it was in. I would want to do this because I think it's so important to, if I have that sort of body reaction to something, that I know it can make a lot of change, and hopefully, yeah, that's what art is creating change.
One of the things that struck me about the film is how spare it is. It's short, so it's got to be to the point in its production. I found your portrayal of Rachel highly nuanced, very emotionally palpable, as a viewer. Like, how did you prepare for that?
Thank you. I think because it was a short film and because it was such a really intense subject matter that a lot of people find polarizing, I knew that this character and what she was struggling with had to be so singular and specific, and it couldn't necessarily be this big, alarming performance, because as a viewer, you're going in with so much emotion and so much judgment that watching this person should be almost it should feel spare. The performance should be under the surface. And I do think, I'm not necessarily a mother, but I do think that a lot of the women that I look up to and my friends who are mothers, they really have this stoicism that kind of resides with being a mother, of needing to feel strong and stoic in a lot of ways. And I really wanted Rachel to embody that, how this is a very hard thing that she's going through, but for the sake of her children, she can't show weakness. And I think that's something that I find really, really powerful.
Okay, so I think that's the perfect jumping off point to talk about Parachute, because there's some themes in there that I think are maybe connected. I told you that I feel like after seeing Parachute, that I felt like it's a book club movie. You want to see it, watch this with people you like. You're gonna want to talk about it. I feel like I need to see it again because I know I'm gonna get something completely different out of it. It sticks with me. As I'm doing something else, I'm thinking about it. So you wrote this, you produced this, you directed this. How did you know you were ready to do this, or did you know you were ready?
I did not. And now I remember this the night before shooting my first day. I was like, who the hell gave me the permission to do this? I hope I don't mess this up. And I think that comes with a little bit of imposter syndrome that I would imagine a lot of people share. But then it's sort of this same gut feeling that I always go back to, which is I don't have a choice. I have to do this, and if I mess up, it's on my own accord. But I don't have another choice. No matter, no one else is going to direct and my own, story. In a way, I wrote this about an experience that I went through in my early 20s, and I knew that all I could do was prepare myself in the best way possible, and then go into it and sort of let go. And I think sometimes that's what happens with the greatest sort of things that come together is preparation until you can't think about it anymore, and then when you get there, just actually letting go and being open to the little magic that comes that you didn't even think about. And I think that's what happened a lot for me in Parachute, is that I went through a mini film school during COVID, and I put myself through, some courses in a way. So then when I got on set, I could actually forget about it and just go off of instinct. And I think that was really hopeful.
Was it hard to get this made?
Yes, it took about 6 years. It was furthest to I'd let it be coming out. Just a few years.
That's a lesson in perseverance.
Yes, it is. And as a director of the movie, people, my friends told me this, but they always said, you're the captain of this ship, and there will be so many people that fall off and don't have the passion anymore, and you have to continue, or else it just sinks. So I think that if it wasn't something that I believed about so thoroughly, that I could have found another way of going, but I believed in it.
So you've been publicly saying that this is somewhat autobiographical, not entirely. Is that an added level of vulnerability as you're going through advocacy and getting it made?
Definitely, and I think that I was very scared about the repercussions of that and the judgment that would come along with that, maybe seeing it as self-seeking or vain in a way. And what I counteract that thought with is that my vulnerability in this is the reason that it's so honest, and when I'm honest, other people seem to be honest as well. And so if that's the marking of a good film, it being honest, and that's what I tried to do. So, yeah, it's really scary. I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually opening up a whole closet of things that now not just my therapist knows about. So, so I think I am, but I think that's what everyone does. Hopefully, within making or writing and directing movies, using peaceful parts of that. Right.
Can you explain why the movie's called Parachute?
So originally it was called September 17th, which is a really important day for me. 15 years ago, when I decided that I was never going to do anything harmful to myself or my body ever again. But I felt that was probably too nuanced and specific, and also like somebody's birthday was on September 17th. That even was really confused that this movie was also called. So I knew that I should change the title, and I wanted something that really encapsulated the feeling that not it's a double duality of a meaning, I guess, is that there's always someone who is falling, and there's always someone who's trying to catch you, hopefully. And sometimes that codependent nature becomes really addictive. There's always going to be someone who, in relationships, knows how to catch you, and sometimes that's to your detriment because you should actually fall yourself. And I also think the other meaning to that is that we are all, as a society, using parachutes away. Glennon Doyle calls them easy buttons. And I love when she talks about this, how we're always trying to check out from our life. We're always trying to lessen the fall of just feeling our feelings or being with ourselves. So we go shopping, or we eat something, or we smoke something, or we drink something, and we're trying to just not feel the feelings. And sometimes being able to just sit in your own emotions is the hardest part. And that's where the fall is. And so the parachute, I think, is also a way of recognizing that throughout the film, she's trying to lessen her fall until she can't anymore.
I was really struck by both herself as well as Tom's man, playing her love interest, that there's a lot of discussion about how reflective she is and how self-aware she is. And yet, she's making these choices that she doesn't want to make.
Sure, I think that was a huge. I told Courtney Eaton to watch on repeat Worst Person in the World. There was a movie that I love dearly because I think there's such brazen strength in a woman's quest for finding herself and yet being aware that she's being messy. Because I think that no one's perfect and no one is willingly sometimes hurting people. I think we're all trying to do the best that we can. It's just our basic instincts or our childhood traumas are coming in the way of our decision making. But that doesn't mean that we're bad people. And so I really wanted this character to have that sort of, I hate to use the word duality again, but I guess that's the theme of this talk, is that she is yet very self-aware, but also I think that's what's so painful, is that she knows the decision that she needs to make and then she makes the opposite one. And that's a lot of what recovery is that non-linear sort of understanding that you throw down and you get back up.
Okay, so interesting, talking about coaching Courtney. I completely believed that Courtney Eaton and Tom's man were their characters, like 100%. Like if I ran into them on the street in New York, that they would be those humans. And I've also heard them both rave about you as a director. Can you how is it to be a director? What did you bring into that process? with them?
That's very sweet. I think as a people pleaser myself, I just always went to set and was like, the actors like me. So I'm glad that they did. But I think what's great about being a director, being an director, is that I know that I can chameleon myself to the needs of each person. It's also, having to do with my childhood, I guess, but be the kid actor. But I think I can chameleon myself in it because everyone needs a different thing, and each department needs a different type of director, and each actor needs a different director. And I think what was really important and specific for me was to know that I could go to Courtney and Thomas and actually have really specific conversations with them directly related to their lives and what they needed from me and from each other. And I did weird things with them, like I made them write each other's songs, because they're both musicians. I made them make each other playlists. I made them go bowling. Weird things that I think really helped to kind of solidify their chemistry and their friendship, and I think that was important for me to. I got those ideas from being an actor, so I think that was helpful.
I love that. If I went through that experience with a fellow actor, I think I would still be friends with them. Are they still friends?
Well, check out their social media. They are with a brand. Oh. Those are built up. They're public on it. Social media.
I get. That's okay. So now I'm going to add matchmaker to your.
I would never have said that if they didn't make it public recently. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I love seeing Dave Bautista. I mean, come on, those shirts. How did you get, that's brilliant casting. How did you get him interested in the project?
So Dave and I were friends because we did a movie called Bushwick together, in which we were basically, it was a two-hander where we just ran around New York and I tried to become an action star, which didn't work. And he was just so lovely, and I was going through a breakup at that point, and he was just such a big brother to me, and we really had this great friendship. And I remember saying to him, one day I'm going to direct a movie, and I really, promised me they were going to be in it. And he promised, and he keeps his promises. And so when I called him up and I was like, I have a script that I want you to read, I'm directing it, you have a tiny part I wrote for you. And he said, great, I'll do it. He didn't read it. Which I'm really glad he did, because I could have made him do anything. Which would have been really scary. So I wanted to write that part for Dave because he is that part. He is a big teddy bear and has the most genuine heart, and I wanted people to see that side of him, so that's why I wanted him to be in it.
I loved it. It was just like a little piece of dessert to see him come on the screen.
Yeah, and his shirts. I'm glad you noticed that.
Oh my gosh.
I think those shirts really.
Oh my gosh! Promise me you're going to see this movie. It's just for the shirt. For more than the shirts, for the shirts are really great. So in the end, what do you hope? People on the other side of seeing this film, what do you hope they're talking about, or what do you hope that they feel, or maybe what other choices might they make differently in their lives as a result?
The thing that got me up in the morning every day in terms of making this movie and directing it was that and I know this sounds really cheesy and probably not true, but it was the fact that I needed this movie when I was going through it, and there wasn't really this movie because I felt really weird and alone in what I was doing with people and substances and my body and not understanding how to not dissociate. And so I have so much care and consideration for the person who is going through this and knowing that you can recover from it, that I was hoping that maybe someone sees themselves in it. I mean, that's an altruistic version of what I hope, but also I hope that someone just feels connected to something that they may not have understood before. I know this is a very specific mental health topic, and my biggest compliment that I get, or the thing that I find the most complimentary, is when people who don't have any, relation to eating disorders or don't know anybody with an eating disorder says to me, oh, I get it now. I understand what she's doing, and I'll never judge, my friend who has it, or an ex-girlfriend of mine, or saying to a girlfriend of mine, like, just eat less, whatever that is, and they actually have a perspective that means the world to me.
I think you really invite the viewer into a lens of compassion and understanding as a result with the belly hunt. So I think a lot of people in this room are maybe in their early career stage, or are thinking about a pivot, and just knowing, my last question to you, sort of knowing more about how you navigated your career would be really interesting. Can you share just a little bit about what that's been like for you?
Yikes. Gosh.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Okay. I think it's so wild to me. If someone would have told you this, 15 years ago or 13 years ago, I took 2 years off of acting, and I specifically walked away from the entire business because I needed to recover and I needed to get better, and it's what Parachute was about. And I never thought I definitely didn't think I was speaking about my career, because I thought I was going to be failing. And especially after 30, there's this sort of feeling in Hollywood that after the age of 30 and 35, you need to have a certain thing accomplished. And I just really want to prove my other people wrong in that way, but also prove my own mind wrong, that there's so much more out there and so much more to do than what the books want me to believe in my negative thinking. And sometimes counteracting that and just acting as if and going forth anyway has been the best thing for me, even when it's scary. And I think that you can come back from anything. I really believe that. If I'm so I think it's just a pivot, that you were saying.
Well, I'm so glad you did come back from the break, and please give a gift to yourself and see both of these projects. I'm really impressed, and it's been such a delight to chat with you. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels, and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.